Did you ever talk to John Gruden at all about this job?
I reached out to John early in the process to set up a meeting, and word came back through his agent that John was very happy doing what he's doing and would not be coaching college football.
Can you give the particulars of the contract? Can you give the particulars of the contract?
Yeah, contracts are here for y'all to pick up. It's a MOU, Memorandum of Understanding, and I think it's very easy to read.
Dave, can you talk about just the last 36 hours for you, emotionally, mentally? Just kind of walk everybody through what you did yesterday and kind of what happened from the middle of the afternoon on Tuesday or Wednesday.
Yeah, I think, it was a complex environment, and it's going to be, Brent, when you go into a coaching search, quite honestly. Last night, I met with Butch. We met in Lexington, Kentucky at 10 o'clock. At 6 o'clock this morning, we finished our session, so neither one of us have slept. So if I doze off for a second, you just scream. But we had an exceptional conversation, which led to what we're doing today.
Can you talk about Thursday, because obviously we got the rejection, and then you had to restart the process. What was going on during the day yesterday before you went to Kentucky?
I think you just have to, when you get into a search and you target, and we had a half a dozen targets that I thought could come and do the job at Tennessee. It's not, you move on. If you offer the job, somebody takes it, somebody doesn't, or if somebody doesn't, you move on. And you feel confident in going to the next guy. And I think it was stated very, very well by Butch. Things do work out, and things do work out for the best.
Dave, who are some of the people that you talked to about Butch to kind of get sort of some info on him?
Talked to a lot of people in the profession, both administratively, talked to people Butch had worked with in terms of administrators, ADs, staff, people on campus, talked to coaches. I knew that two of his mentors were Urban and Brian, and their respect for him is pretty obvious in their comments. But I also look for, in my mind, one of the key indicators of whether a person is going to be successful coaching-wise is, has he won everywhere he's been? And he has. So when you can win everywhere you've been, that tells me a lot.
Dave?
When did you first identify Coach Jones, and also when did you first talk to him?
Butch was on that list, short list, Jimmy, all along. But we did not get face-to-face until, as I said, last evening. And I knew he was weighing the Colorado job. I knew he had been offered a couple other jobs. And I knew he felt secure in Cincinnati. But it was not 20 minutes into what turned out to be a conversation that lasted through the night. It was about 20 minutes into it when I could see genuine passion. It wasn't artificial when he said, "Dave, this is my dream job." And I knew that was coming from his heart.
Dave, Cincinnati's AD Whit Babcock said this morning that you, of the 5 schools that approached Butch, that you were the only one that called him first and went through protocol and all like that. And I was wondering, is that the way you conducted the entire search? And if so, did that kind of make it more difficult in some ways, always going through the front door?
No, because what I've always done, Evan, in my entire career is reach out to my peer and say this: I'm not calling for permission. That's a misnomer. I'm calling out of professional courtesy. And when I'm on the other end of this, what I tell callers is, if you want information on a search, you need to go to the school that's in the search. I don't comment on someone else's search. And I've always done that, and Whit was very gracious when I called him.
Dave, when you were talking about you liked the idea that he'd won other places. You mentioned in your earlier press conference about someone with head coaching experience. This profile, the idea you had of a head coach, how restrictive was it? Did it include age, where they'd been, or anything of that nature?
No, John, it really didn't. Again, the primary focus for me was to judge the level of success. Has he been able to win? everywhere he's been. Has he been able to rebuild? Has he been able to take talent that maybe was there and expound on the success of that talent? Has he been able, I studied all the recruiting that Butch has done where he's coached. And it's those types of things. Recruiting is the lifeblood. I talked to coaches about his ability to recruit. I knew some former players that praised his ability not only to recruit, but what he said, the player repeated to me before I ever met him. He cares. He drives us, but he cares. And the players really connect with him. And so that came from players that are now in the pros and players he's coached in college, and it was a very consistent theme. Yes?
He mentioned that he is recruited in the South, some in Tennessee and in Florida as well. How important was it, do you think, to have somebody that had recruited in the South? And do you believe what he said, that, hey, if you can recruit, you can recruit?
I think that's true. I think great recruiters, Jimmy, that I've known throughout my career, you know, they have the skill set that enables them to be great recruiters. But I do think it's important, particularly in this league, and we talked about this at great length last night, to understand this league and understand the competitive nature of this league. And Butch talked about how good the Southeastern Conference is at the line of scrimmage. And we talked a lot about that. He has an excellent grasp and an excellent plan on what he wants to do in that regard. But I do think it's important to have diversity on your staff in terms of, as John asked, you know, you need some younger guys who can really relate and identify. You need some veteran guys who understand the game thoroughly. You need some guys who understand the SEC, have been to war in the SEC. And I think at the end of the day, that's the balance he's going to look for.
Dave, is there a timetable on the staff?
I don't think so, Brent. I think he'll meet with the staff later today, our current staff, and you know, he'll make some decisions relative to what he'll do tonight is call all of our recruits after he meets with our staff, some of whom have already reached out to him. So I think that there's no timetable, but he'll know how many guys he wants on the road. As he said, he's got names in mind that he wants to reach out to, and he'll begin that process, and he'll interview coaches here.
Did you guys talk a lot about those names last night?
We did. Yeah, we talked about names last night, you know, that he had in mind, and I think he's got a good list of prospects.
Dave, in this day of social media, I think a lot of fans feel like they probably went every step of the process with you.
I felt that way a lot of times, too.
When you have that out there, now that you have your guy, Butch talked about the body of work. What did you see in his body of work that makes you feel like you got the right guy?
I think he is a great CEO. I think he has a real grasp of how to manage the total program. And it's a very complex task. I mean, you've got to be a multitasker to be a head football coach. You're not only the face of the football program, you're the face of the whole university. And so you have to be able to do that. He's very attuned to relationships with high school coaches, relationships with lettermen, relationships with the media. You know, he agreed when we got off the plane today to have our guys, Barry and his crew, put a mic on him. Because he said, you know, I want people to have access, reasonable access. I want them to know me, and I want to get to know them. That's part of his makeup, which is refreshing, I think. And he's a really good football coach. Butch Jones, in talking to pro scouts who come through a lot, in talking to college coaches that I have a great deal of respect for, who I saw many of them in New York, and they hold him in very high regard as a football coach.
Dave, you mentioned about how with social media and everything being so different today, how much different was this process of every time it seemed like you made a move or made a phone call, it seemed like it was out there in the media already? How much different was this than something else you've gone through?
Actually, that really didn't begin to occur until late in the process. I think we ran a professional search, and I think we ran it to the extent feasible in today's market with as much confidence and discreetness as is feasible. Now, when people begin to track the plane numbers and all, then it gets away from you a little bit. But that's part of it. And you know what? That's fun. That's fun for the fans. There's nothing wrong with that. I mean, even Jimmy was wrong one time. So there's nothing wrong with that. It's part of college athletics. It's part of the passion that I love so much. So it doesn't bother me. I think the fans did have a good time with it.
You had said in the November 18 press conference you wanted somebody who was kind of familiar with the challenges of moving up the ladder in the SEC. The lack of an SEC background, how much of a concern was that for you initially, and how was he able to kind of persuade you?
We talked about that at great length, and Butch was very prepared to talk about that. And again, he's very familiar with this area in terms of recruiting. He's very familiar with our state. He was extraordinarily prepared for what turned into a very lengthy discussion. Extraordinarily prepared. And I was impressed with his candor. He didn't try to sell anything that wasn't real. And he talked about things that, priorities and things, and how he was going to grow the program, to grow the staff. And, Butch is very, very honest, very direct and very honest. And I think that's what attracts players to him. I think that's why he does develop the relationships that he has over the years with players.
As someone who has a lot of first-hand experience in this league, and you cited Coach Jones's mention in the line of scrimmage in the SEC already, did you have any specific ideas about a style of play that you wanted, or at least loose parameters that you wanted to see?
No, I think Butch's offense, if you study it, he's always had a great balance between running and passing. And his teams, as he said, although they're an up-tempo, they're a physical team. They run the ball physically. And they also do a great job scheming in the passing game. And he understands that to win in this league, you've got to play great defense. You got to be fundamentally sound. You got to know technique. And as he said, that's a focal point, and that's why he loves to teach. Most great coaches love to teach.
Dave, with all the passion and excitement around the search that you just talked about, for fans out there who may be concerned that you didn't get your first choice in this hire, what do you say to them?
I thought, I can't beat his answer. I don't know that I was even the third choice for my wife. But at the end of the day, I got to the destination. And that's what happened here. So that's part of it. And that's, if you're the second team quarterback and the first quarterback gets hurt and you perform, the first team quarterback never is the first team quarterback again. You capitalize on opportunities. You don't look backwards, you move forward. And I think that's what we have to do now as a fan base. As our alumni, our fan base, we've got to come back together as one. We've got to come back together and get Tennessee football back where we all want it. And I am absolutely confident that that's what this fan base will do. Yes?
Does he know our talent level that we have?
He does. Yeah, he's very cognizant of the level of talent. And, he thinks we have enough talent to win in this league. And he thinks Derek did a very good job building the talent and building the roster. And I agree with that.
Dave, just two quick questions. One, right over here. Did Chancellor Cheek, how involved was he as far as maybe talking to candidates or allaying any of their concerns? I'm over on the other side.
Okay, I can't.
There you go.
Yeah, Evan, why don't you say Dave? It's Evan.
How involved was Chancellor Cheek? Did he talk to any of the candidates? And second part is coming up with Coach Jones' compensation package, and especially the buyout, given that Tennessee's maybe history with buyouts of late has been.
Chancellor Cheek offered to personally pay the buyout, first of all. He was great. He was great, as he always is. He listened, he understood, he did, yes, he met with the candidates. He was as involved as he said, you tell me what to do and I'll make it a priority. And he did that.
And outside of that, you made it a point to say it was going to be your search, and in the end, how much influence would there have been from the board or donors or however you want to look at it?
None. Listen, we're so blessed here. We're so blessed to have the type of donors and people that we have at Tennessee. And they were great. They were terrific from start to finish. Very supportive. If anything, I'd get the only text I got is, thinking about you, or now I quit thinking about you, now I'm praying for you. But everybody was really good.
You mentioned in your press conference on Sunday about level playing field, the challenges, the crossroads, all of those things. How much conversation with the candidates did you have to have? How much did you get asked about the academics, the level playing field, the things you outlined when you met with us right after firing Derek Dooley?
Candidates do their homework just like I do my homework. So, you know, I was happy and welcomed any questions that they had. You know, the probation was a question that was very consistent, you know. So they knew what our warts were. They knew what our strengths were, just as I tried to study their strengths and their weaknesses. So it was a very candid conversation. And to be honest, it was a very healthy process. We were fishing in a pretty good pond, to be honest, in my judgment, and with people who can come and fit and do the job and understand that we're not there. We're going to get there, but we're not there yet. And they understand, and Butch understands, that he's got to be a part of that solution, and he wants to be a part of that solution, just as everybody on our campus wants to be a part of that solution.
Dave, how many candidates did you meet face-to-face with through this process?
Yeah, I met with a handful of candidates. I spent probably the most time with 4 candidates.
Dave, given where this thing started from fan expectation-wise with John Gruden, did you worry or was it a concern at all that you weren't going to, quote, win the press conference in the end? And is that kind of fool's goal anyway?
I think it is, Mike. I've never gone into a search with that as an objective, because at the end of the day, it's success on the field. It doesn't matter. The press conference fades quickly. It's success on the field. And these coaches, every coach I talked to, clearly understood that and understands the challenges, but also understands how gratifying it can be, in this case, for Butch to be the leader of our football program when we return to our rightful place in the pecking order in the SEC and nationally. And this guy is very driven to accomplish that goal.